There you go.
Hi everybody. Before you listen to this video, please like and subscribe. Push the little bell notification.
What he said.
Yeah, Ina's going to put it right about here.
Somewhere around there.
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay. So today we want to make a video. The title of this video you clicked on is Jehovah's Witnesses. Good people? Yeah, they are, and most people are good people. But today we want to talk about what makes good people do bad things. In Guyana in 1979, the leader of the People's Temple, Jim Jones, after years and years of indoctrination, this organization started in San Francisco. They felt they were being persecuted. Sound familiar? And they left San Francisco and they all moved into a commune in Guyana. Well, they felt they were being persecuted further by the United States government as senators were going over there to assess the situation. And so, long story short, Jim Jones told his congregation that they were just all going to meet in heaven. So he had people poison some Kool-Aid, and they all drank it and died. But the thing is, and this was almost 1,000 people, but the thing is there were parents in that group of 1,000 people that made their children drink the poison first, and then they drank it. You think that those people didn't love their children that they were killing? I'm sure they did. I'm sure that's why they did it, because they thought they were doing the right thing. It's this influence. Why do jihadists go into the middle of a cafe strapped with a bomb and say Allah Akbar and kill themselves and everybody in the cafe? They think they're doing the right thing. They think they're doing God's work. It's the influence. Ina told me that when she was a witness. What do you tell me?
Yeah, so I would come home from district conventions or circuit assemblies, and if the talk was on apostasy, it was really hard for me not to come home and kind of ruminate over that information and not hate my husband, because I was stuck with an apostate. And even though I loved him a lot, it was still hard for me, because I love this man and he didn't love my God. So yeah, those apostate views or people, like anyone who gave that talk, made you look at people differently that you cared about in life, that didn't agree with you. And it was very hard for me to understand my viewpoint until I read Stephen Hassan's book, Combating Cult Mind Control, and how he explained that his father was taking him to the hospital, and in that period of time of him picking him up and driving him to the hospital, he was in the back seat and wanted to break his father's neck, and then he could just go back to his group. But the point was that he saw his father as something that was talked about negatively as well. And I didn't realize how dangerous that was. You know, it's a us versus them mentality. And Alexandra Stein, her book on terror and love, and I'm probably getting it a little mixed up, but it hit home as well. And understanding why I had the thoughts that I did, and making sure to understand the psychology behind it. There is a psychology, and once you understand that psychology, it helps so much in feeling better about yourself and being in the world and looking at the world around you differently.
Yeah. As far as Jehovah's Witnesses go, what makes a mother and a father treat their child that they've loved and cared for their entire life, fed, taken care of? What makes a mother and a father treat their child as if they're dead just because they don't think the same things they think anymore, just because that child doesn't have the exact same beliefs that they have anymore? There's been instances where parents, Jehovah's Witnesses parents, have kicked their child out into the street at a very young age, knowing full well they have nowhere to go. And quite a few times this has resulted in suicide. What makes people act that way? It's the influence they get. It's what they think they're doing. They think that they're doing a loving thing. And as far as Jehovah's Witnesses go, they think that the shunning arrangement is a loving arrangement. It isn't.
Yeah, and I remember when my parents went to the Kingdom Hall with the other parents that had their sons molested, and how the elders kind of put the parents below them, and they had the up above kind of chairs, so they sat and looked below them. And not one of those, there's only out of the group of parents, only 2 went to the authorities. No elders went with them. So they say that you can go to the authorities, but that isn't all. I mean, you need the backing of the elder body. You need other adults to back you up. And if you're a child and you didn't get any sort of support from your parent who was supposed to protect you during that very sensitive time in your life, go to the authorities and protect you from this person who molested you. And go to the authorities and get other adults that are supposed to protect you. You can understand the mentality better, because they won't go to the authorities, because the backing of the branch will not be so that they can go to the authorities. So those are things that aren't necessarily brought up to the fore for the average publisher, and the average publisher may not ever have to deal with that type of circumstance. So I noticed that when I would tell just the average publisher about that, it was very hard for them to even conceive. They would always say, "Oh, well, I don't think that would ever happen." They say you can go to the authorities. Yeah, you as a parent can go to the authorities, but you're not getting anybody else to help you with that situation. And if you are told as a parent that this brings shame on Jehovah and his organization, that you will be a part of that.
Yeah, they tell you you have the right to go to the authorities, but do you really want to drag Jehovah's name through the mud? So they really discourage it. But they only say in their publications in writing that they give Jehovah's Witnesses the right to go to the authorities when something like child abuse happens, so that they can show the public and they can show the press, look, here, we say they can go to the authorities. We don't stop them from going to the authorities. Mm-hmm. But when you're in the Kingdom Hall and you're in the back room, they say, do you really want to drag Jehovah's name through the mud? So they severely discourage it because they don't want to bring reproach on Jehovah's name. And
the way they set it up too, where the elders are above and the publishers and the parents are below. That's exactly how they set it up for my parents. Where there was a row of elders and the parents had to deal with that. They had the authority and these parents did not. And that's why they didn't go to the authorities.
Right.
There were only 2 parents that did, and oftentimes you hear it that the children are dealing, now that they're grown, their parents who are Jehovah's Witnesses stay with that mentality, and they won't go and they won't help them with their the molester, and I actually confronting them and getting the authorities involved. The parents won't do it, even as the children are full-fledged adults trying to get this taken care of. Their parents shun them instead of protect them again and help them get through that.
Yeah. And if you ever saw the documentary on the Oxygen Network called The Witnesses, you'll see a very sad story where a little girl was molested by an elder in the congregation. She was groomed for a long time. She was molested when she was a child, when the elder and the elder's wife were babysitting the child, and she was molested for many years. And as she became an adult, it came back to her, and she realized what had happened, and she brought this man she went to the authorities, and the authorities arrested the man, and this case went to court. The victim in this case, the daughter, her father was an elder, and in the courtroom, on the one side you have the plaintiff's friends and family, and then you have the defendant, which is Jehovah's Witnesses, and this particular elder in the congregation. While the victim's father, who was an elder, sat directly behind the elder who had molested his daughter in support of him. This is just mind-bogglingly horrible. So what causes all of this? What makes otherwise good people do such horrible things and act in such a horrible way? It's the influence that we get. And most of the time, this influence is religious, right? What I started off this video with is what would make a person, a jihadist, walk into a cafe with a bomb and ignite the bomb, killing himself and everybody in the cafe, all the way down to what would make otherwise loving parents treat their child as if they're dead when they've done nothing wrong other than don't believe what they were raised to believe. Well, it's religion. It's the religious influence. And we're going to put a link below to a TED Talk. TED Talk has nothing to do with Jehovah's Witnesses, but it just talks about what would make otherwise good people do bad things. And a lot of it has to do with groupthink. And it'll be explained in the talk. But I wanted to read a quote before we go from a theoretical physicist. This is a really good quote. You probably heard it or iterations of it in the past, but it basically says, religion is an insult to human dignity. Without it, you will have good people doing good things and evil people doing evil things. But for good people to do evil things, that takes religion. And that's not just a quote. That's from experience. That's been proven over and over and over again throughout history. It's Hitler's SS army and their belt buckles that said God is with us. And they thought God was with them. They thought God was cleansing the evil from the earth.
When I left Jehovah's Witnesses, I went into an ExJW group, and they were nice, but there were certain ones that said, I despise atheists. And my husband was an atheist at that point. And I thought, oh my God, as I'm listening to their thoughts, it's very similar to just a group think. It took me a while to just stay away from groups because I realized, wait a minute, I have to get stronger and identify certain things. And then I can get back into a healthier, identifying things in a healthy way and steering clear from it. Mm-hmm. So even with this past few weeks, we've had a lot of setbacks in health and my mom dying. I really had to get my perspective back, because you can be hateful and very angry. And I think there was a point in that whole process, because you are erased as a human being. You are erased. It's determined they do it in a determined fashion to erase you from existence. And in my family, the cult dynamic was very, very prominent. It was, you do it my way or you don't. We don't want anything to do with you. I just really encourage a hard copy of this book. It's called The Body Keeps Score. And actually, Jason explained to me that another JW had her therapist recommend it. And it is recommended to therapists because they want, this Dr. Basil van der Kolk, he has done a lot of work on the brain. And I've been very public about my seizures. I've been public about my brain bleed in my prefrontal cortex. And it's kind of fascinating because a friend of mine told me, her and her sister thought that, well, we think that you changed because of your brain bleed. And I thought, well, do all these other people have brain bleeds and that's why they've changed? That didn't make sense to me. And trauma. We, as witnesses, when you come out of this organization, you're very traumatized and you don't understand what you can believe as far as fear is concerned. Should you fear people when they want to get closer to you? What kind of group is good for you? How do you explain your experiences? Because I know that when I was in a group of ExJWs and they wanted me to explain my experience, I was in instant fear. I didn't really want to do that, but I was kind of coerced into it, and I went and I explained. But it's, there's so much trauma in that experience, even when you relate it. I encourage people to be in a safe place with a safe group of people in order to express that experience, because it can traumatize you again. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, but I've had experience in group therapy. When my dad committed suicide, I went to group therapy, and that was rough. And you can have, and it was a good experience. They weren't mean or anything like that, but it's very trauma filled with a bunch of individuals with lots of trauma, and it didn't necessarily help me. So, and then speaking on a one-on-one with a psychologist didn't help me either. So this is a wonderful book because it helps you ask the questions that are necessary in order for you to find the right person for you. And, like I said, I encourage you, if you have a group in which they want you to express what you've been through, you have to be in a safe place in order to do that. Otherwise, you relive your trauma, and that can be a very traumatic experience. So this book explains that. However, I know when I do this and I express my feelings to the world, you also feel better, you get better, and that's probably why I do what I do, because I'm selfish and I want to get better. I want to get better faster. I realize that certain emotions are triggered, and certain things can help or hinder, and when you express things, it helps to heal. When you finally get an opportunity to do that, it helps you to heal. So my encouragement is, if you have something to say, please share it. And if you do a better job than we do, perfect. It's
Wouldn't
good. Yeah. So, you need to voice yourself so that you're not hidden. And I encourage it because it will help a community of people that you have no idea how it will help them. So yeah, The Body Keeps Score is a wonderful book, and they have it on Audible. So
this little lady, she says she's selfish, but she's the most selfless person I've ever known in my life. And she's a good person. She was a Jehovah's Witness for many, many years after I realized it was a cult, and I left. And I wanted her out because she is a good person. She wasn't a bad person. She just had very bad influence. And so, finally worked. I got her out. Now here we are.
Yeah, and we're experiencing life together differently now.
So
Good.
we really encourage you to, if you are fresh out of the organization, or if you're a witness and you're thinking about all these things, please don't jump out of the fire into the frying pan. Have some alone time. Have some reflection. Dig into things like this book that my wife is recommending. Go find a book called Fog, Fear, Obligation, and Guilt. I forget who it's by, but just look up that term and you'll find the book, Fear, Obligation, and Guilt. And other things like that. And just have some alone time. Have some help, but don't run into another group. Oh, this is where Christ is. I'm an atheist. My wife is an atheist now. That's not a secret. If you believe in God, that's absolutely fine. Nobody judges anybody here. But please don't find another group right away. Find out who you are first. If you were born into this, try to figure out the things that you've loved your whole life that you haven't been able to do or express because you were one of Jehovah's Witnesses. If you came into this organization after you had been alive for a while, go back in time in your mind and figure out who that authentic self was, and find that person again, and develop that personality. Find the person that you loved, the things you liked about yourself. Everybody loves themselves. So I encourage you to do that. Before you jump into another group, figure out who you are first and gain strength as an individual so that you can combat what has happened to you before, so you can combat it from happening again. Yeah.
Alexandra Stein. Terror, Love, and Brainwashing. So that is a really good book, and it's also on Audible. And I don't have the hard copy yet, but I have Stephen Hassan's Combating Cult Mind Control. That is just even the first few pages of that book are instantly wonderful. And it opens up, as a Jehovah's Witness I was considered a born in. I'm struggling always to find out who my authentic self is. It's a struggle, especially because we were both born-ins.
We were both. Fortunately, my dad was never a witness. So I did have some interest in things that I love to do aside from the Jehovah's Witness organization, albeit I felt really guilty when I was a witness and I was doing them and I loved them so much. But I did kind of have an authentic self besides being a Jehovah's Witness when I was one, because my dad never was one. And it also helped because we would visit friends and family who were not Jehovah's Witness, and I saw that there's some good people out there. In fact, that's one of the things that started me thinking down that road, is that, wow, there's a lot of good people out here. I don't see how Jehovah's going to kill them, and I see some Jehovah's Witnesses who are not that great. I don't see how just because of what you believe you're going to be saved or destroyed at Armageddon. There's got to be some gray area. There's got to be some changes there. So that was one of the things that helped me to think, is knowing that there's a lot of good people outside of the organization, and I didn't think that a loving God was going to kill them just because of what was in their minds. But
yeah, and I'm having the adventure of finding out who I am, what my authentic self actually is. So it is, like I said, a struggle, but I fortunately, and I'm in a position where my husband has been patient with me, and to try and figure out, for me, allowing me to find out what that authentic self is. So I'm grateful. I'm very grateful. Yeah.
Cool.
Because not everybody has that opportunity. And if you're alone, I've put lots of different information below in the description for places that you could reach out. So you're not alone, or when you're having a bad day, It can be very much a struggle to want to live, especially when you're coming out of something that has been so fear-oriented, and you're afraid. You're afraid to live. I understand that.
Yeah. So anyway, we got to make this video quick because we got to go get one of our kids. But hopefully that was informative. Hopefully it was helpful.
Thank you for letting us come into your living rooms.
Thanks for giving us
on
the
our
time.
Yeah, on your cell phones. Thank you for participating and giving us comments. We always appreciate the comments because I know I read all the comments, and sometimes I read them to my daughters. So I appreciate it when they're nice and clean and they're not. No, we've gotten some negative comments, but very few. I'm so very grateful to all of you.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. And
follow your bliss.
Follow your bliss.
Be good humans.
And be good humans.
Thanks, baby.
And after all's been said and done, to think that I'm the lucky one, I can't believe that you're in love with me.